Samuel Davis possessed a discreet presence, one that seamlessly blended with the urban backdrop of Portland, Oregon, effortlessly. His height, though remarkable, was softened by a stooped posture, the result of years spent observing the world from a perspective of curiosity and introspection. His hair, a cascade of tousled brown strands falling haphazardly across his forehead, seemed to capture the essence of his approach to life, deliberately unconventional yet genuinely authentic. Samuel's eyes, deep and contemplative, were like windows to a soul that lived between dream and reality, reflecting a rare combination of resilient determination and an almost Zen-like serenity. Born and raised in the blue-collar heart of Portland, into a family whose generations had dedicated themselves to the construction trade, Samuel was immersed in a world where form and function were not merely means of subsistence, but expressions of art and history. His childhood was punctuated by weekend outings with his father, Michael, a respected carpenter who taught him about the bones and muscles of the buildings that composed the landscape of their city. "Look, Samuel," he would say, pointing to an exposed beam or an elegantly molded column, "each element tells a story about who built this place and why." These moments not only nurtured Samuel's love for architecture, but also spurred him to ponder how he might one day contribute to this ever-evolving urban narrative. His mother, Sarah, a dedicated teacher, supplemented this hands-on education with evenings of reading and discussions on books ranging from literary classics to modern design treatises. Through these conversations, Samuel learned to appreciate the beauty in people's life stories and the complexity of the spaces they inhabited. "Buildings are like books, Samuel," she would say, as they flipped through pages of architectural sketches together, each with its own plot, characters, and moments of climax. Yet, this enriching environment was in constant contrast with the economic constraints the family faced. Portland was in a moment of transformation, and while Samuel's neighborhood shifted with new developments replacing the old, his family's daily struggle to make ends meet was a constant reminder of the barriers he would need to overcome to achieve his dreams. Every penny saved, every scholarship he applied for, was a step towards realizing his goal of becoming an architect who not only designed buildings, but created spaces that reflected and honored the stories of the communities they served. In school, Samuel was known for his dedication and unusual talent for drawing. His notebooks were filled with sketches of urban landscapes, each line an attempt to capture the essence of Portland, from its green spaces and waterfront areas to the historic neighborhoods that told the story of its evolution. Teachers and peers often found him lost in thought, a distant gaze, hands moving autonomously as he translated his reflections onto paper. This passion did not go unnoticed, and with the encouragement of mentors and the tenacity he inherited from his parents, Samuel began to forge the path towards realizing his dreams, armed with the conviction that architecture was his way of making a lasting mark on the world. In this environment of continuous learning and aspiration, Samuel Davis grew up understanding deeply that, although his observant nature might make him go unnoticed in the bustling streets of Portland, his impact on the city would not be measured by his visibility, but by his ability to integrate his artistic vision with the functionality and social sensitivity that his parents had so carefully instilled in him. As he walked the streets he loved so much, he daydreamed about the future, envisioning not only the buildings he would design, but the lives that would be lived within them, each contributing to the ongoing fabric of Portland's history. Samuel Davis was fortunate to come into the world in a warm and supportive corner of Portland, Oregon, known for its communion and close ties among neighbors. The houses, though modest in size and decor, were rich in stories and memories, painted with the vibrant colors of resilience and camaraderie. This neighborhood, woven with the threads of the working class, was home to people who knew the value of collective effort and mutual aid. It was in this environment of humility and collective strength that Samuel spent his formative years, cradled by the unconditional love and support of his family. His father, Michael Davis, was the epitome of the dedicated American worker, a sturdy man with calloused hands and a face weathered by the sun and wind, symbols of hard work on Portland's construction sites. Despite his nature as a man of few words, Michael expressed his love and values through actions, teaching Samuel not only about tools and building materials, but about the ethics of work and the importance of persistence. "Samuel," he would often say in his rare but meaningful conversations, "a man's true strength is not in how many words he can speak, but in how many promises he can keep." These lessons, imparted on cool afternoons under Portland's gray sky, while they watched structures rise from the ground, were etched into Samuel's mind. On the other hand, his mother, Sarah Davis, brought a bright and verbal counterpoint to Michael's sobriety. A primary school teacher, she was a woman of unbreakable spirit, whose passion for education and literature transcended the classroom walls and spilled over into her home, illuminating the lives of her family. With her hair always tied in an unassuming bun and glasses hanging around her neck, Sarah was a source of knowledge and inspiration. Evenings at the Davis household were often filled with the sound of her voice, reading excerpts from Dickens, Tolkien, or Angelou, turning their modest living room into worlds of pure imagination. "Books," she would tell Samuel, her eyes shining with enthusiasm, "are portals, my dear. They take us to places our feet could never reach." It was this early introduction to the world of reading that planted in Samuel the seeds of creativity and aspiration, encouraging him to dream beyond the confines of his neighborhood. The Davis home, though simple, was a haven of love, learning, and growth. Every meal shared around the modest kitchen table was an opportunity for discussions about the day, about the challenges faced, and the small victories celebrated. These moments of unity and open dialogue were crucial in shaping Samuel's character, teaching him about the importance of empathy, communication, and mutual support. Growing up in this environment of contrasts, between the father's eloquent silence and the mother's vibrant eloquence, shaped Samuel in profound and lasting ways. While his father showed him how to build from the ground up, his mother taught him to reach for the stars. This duality of lessons and lived examples prepared Samuel for life in ways few books could, equipping him with the strength to face physical challenges and the sensitivity to navigate the labyrinths of imagination and dreams. The Davis residence, though modest in its structure and dimensions, pulsed with the warm energy of a deeply united family. It was a home in the truest sense of the word, a sanctuary of affection and mutual understanding, where the walls, worn by time, bore witness to moments of joy, challenges overcome, and lessons shared. The heart of this vibrant home was undoubtedly the kitchen, not so much for what was cooked there, but for what was shared: laughter, stories, dreams, and occasionally tears. Every evening as the sun set, painting the Portland sky with hues of orange and purple, the Davis family gathered around the modest wooden dining table, an artifact meticulously restored by Michael years ago. Dinner wasn't just a meal. It was a daily ceremony of reunion, a sacred space of connection after each individual's daily journeys. "So, Samuel, how was school today?" Sarah would inquire with genuine interest, serving generous portions of whatever she had prepared, her food simple but made with love, nourishing more than just bodies. "I got the highest grade on the math test," Samuel would respond, a glint of pride in his eyes awaiting his father's approving gaze. "That's my boy," Michael would say, his usually reserved tone replaced by palpable enthusiasm. "It's the result of your hard work and dedication. Remember, no obstacle is too big when you're willing to work hard." These seemingly simple dialogues were the bricks building Samuel's character. It wasn't just about celebrating achievements or sharing daily occurrences. It was a constant exercise in active listening, in putting oneself in another's shoes, in learning to express feelings and opinions with respect and consideration. Sarah and Michael instilled in Samuel not only the value of academic education, but also that of emotional intelligence. On one of those nights, while the family enjoyed a modest yet satisfying dinner of pasta with homemade sauce, Samuel shared a challenge he was facing. "I'm having trouble with a group at school," Samuel began, hesitantly stirring the sauce with his fork. "They just don't seem to get the project we're doing in science. I've tried explaining, but..." Sarah leaned forward, sensing the concern in Samuel's voice. "Do you think there might be a different way to approach the situation? Maybe showing instead of just telling?" Michael agreed, adding his perspective. Sometimes, Samuel, people need to see things with their own eyes to understand. Maybe you could create a model of your project. Something tangible can make all the difference. The ensuing exchange of ideas not only helped Samuel find a solution to his problem, but also reinforced the importance of open dialogue and creative conflict resolution. The Davis kitchen, with its aroma of home-cooked food and the constant sound of conversation and laughter, was the setting where Samuel learned life's most valuable skills: empathy, communication, and the ability to see the world through multiple perspectives. These nights in the Davis family kitchen, marked by shared stories and lessons learned, forged in Samuel a deep understanding of human value and the importance of building bridges between people. It was an invisible yet invaluable legacy, transmitted not through grand words or dramatic gestures, but through the simple act of gathering around the table and sharing life. From a very young age, Samuel Davis displayed an insatiable curiosity that seemed to know no bounds. His neighborhood, a mosaic of humble homes and narrow alleys in Portland, Oregon, became the vast territory of his childhood explorations. Alongside a select group of friends, Alex, Jenna, and Marcus, Samuel embarked on adventures that turned ordinary afternoons into epic journeys of discovery and camaraderie. These young adventurers found abandoned construction sites and empty lots to be perfect stages for their explorations. Armed with imagination as their most precious tool, they collected scraps of wood, bits of metal, and any other materials they could repurpose. Under Samuel's natural leadership, they turned these finds into forts and castles, makeshift structures that served as both secret hideouts and headquarters for their elaborate schemes. "Imagine if this fort were a spaceship," Samuel would say, his eyes shining with the idea as he drew on the dirt ground with a stick, sketching out a rudimentary ship. "And what if we could fly to unknown planets?" Alex, the most practical of the group, scratched his head, doubtful but intrigued. "But how would we breathe in space, Samuel?" Jenna, always the dreamer, jumped to the defense of the idea. "We would use astronaut helmets made from plastic pots, and we would have plants to produce oxygen." Marcus, the quietest but deeply loyal, just smiled, ready to follow Samuel on any adventure he proposed. This dialogue among friends, full of naivety and endless possibilities, was a reflection of Samuel's fertile mind. Even at a young age, he didn't confine himself to what was physically present or immediately practical. His ability to see beyond, to imagine structures not just as physical constructions but as spaces of infinite possibilities, was the seed of what would later become his passion for architecture. These afternoons of play and construction served as an unofficial training ground for Samuel. Each fort built was a lesson in design and engineering, each imaginary adventure an exercise in creativity and problem-solving. More than that, they were moments of pure joy and freedom, where the only limit was the extent of his imagination. For Samuel Davis, school wasn't just a building where he spent his mornings and afternoons. It was a universe full of opportunities to explore and discover. From an early age, he showed a singular appreciation for art and science classes, subjects that sharpened his natural curiosity and stimulated his creative mind. Within those classrooms, surrounded by brushes, paints, microscopes, and experiments, Samuel truly found himself in his element. The teachers, witnesses to the sparkle in Samuel's eyes every time a new concept was introduced or a creative project was proposed, didn't take long to recognize his passion and talent. Mrs. Jenkins, the art teacher especially, saw in Samuel a creative flame she rarely encountered in such young students. She encouraged him, challenging him with increasingly complex projects and providing him with a space for his talent to flourish. "Samuel," she would say with an encouraging smile, "your work has a depth that goes beyond your age. Keep exploring, keep creating." Similarly, Mr. Hamilton, his science teacher, fascinated by the way Samuel could blend creativity with scientific logic, often called him after classes. "You have an inquisitive mind, Samuel. That's rare and valuable. Use it well and never stop asking, wanting to know more," he advised while organizing test tubes and anatomical models. It was during a school field trip, an afternoon dedicated to exploring the pulsating center of Portland, that Samuel had a revelation that would shape the course of his life. Walking through the vibrant streets of the city, he was amazed by the dance of shapes and structures of the buildings around him. The contrast between the old and the new, the organic and the geometric, captured his imagination in a way nothing had before. He stood still at some point, staring intently at the facade of a building whose lines seemed to defy gravity, a testament to human audacity in shaping the world around them. That moment was an epiphany for Samuel. He began to see the city not just as a place to live, but as a constantly evolving canvas, a space where art and science met and shook hands. Returning home, his mind buzzed with ideas and possibilities. He transformed a corner of his room into an improvised studio, where he spent hours drawing, his hand moving frantically to capture the essence of the structures he had seen. Each line was a step closer to translating his newly discovered vision into reality. His parents, Michael and Sarah, watched with admiration and pride as Samuel dedicated himself to his newfound passion. They supported him in the only way they knew how, with unconditional love and practical resources. The dining room table soon became covered with books on architecture, borrowed from the local library and gifts from relatives who supported Samuel's dream. "I think we have a future architect on our hands," Michael commented, a glint of pride in his eyes as he flipped through the pages of a book about the great masters of world architecture. Through this journey of discovery at school and at home, Samuel Davis was paving the way for his future, a path where art and science intertwined, creating a rich tapestry of possibilities. Every class, every book, every sketch was a brick in the foundation of his future career, a reflection of a passion that had been ignited on that unforgettable day in the heart of Portland. During the formative years of adolescence, Samuel Davis immersed himself in the world of architecture, a passion that rooted itself more deeply with each passing day. The local library in Portland became his second home, a tranquil refuge where the gentle hum of air conditioning and the peculiar scent of old books welcomed him like old friends. In this sanctuary of knowledge, he spent countless hours wandering through aisles lined with tomes of wisdom, each book opening a new door to worlds of diverse architectural styles, rich art histories, and complex engineering principles. He was a dedicated autodidact, driven by an insatiable hunger to understand the foundations that connected aesthetic beauty to practical functionality. Despite this unrestrained passion, the reality of his family's financial challenges cast a shadow over his dreams, a constant reminder of the barriers he would need to overcome. The Davis family, while rich in love and emotional support, struggled to gather the resources necessary for a formal education in architecture, a reality that weighed heavily on Samuel's heart. Nevertheless, far from being discouraged, this adversity only strengthened his determination. "You have a talent that cannot be measured in dollars, Samuel," his father Michael would say during earnest conversations in the family's small kitchen while helping with the dishes. "Don't let financial obstacles stand in the way of your dreams. There's always a way." His mother, Sarah, echoed this sentiment with her own unwavering optimism. "We'll find a way," she affirmed, carefully perusing scholarship forms and competition announcements. "You're brilliant, Samuel. The world needs to see what you can create." Inspired by his parents' unshakable faith in him, Samuel channeled his passion and talent into concrete actions. He applied for every scholarship possible and entered drawing competitions, with each application meticulously prepared and each project submitted reflecting the depth of his love for architecture. Every recognition, no matter how small, was celebrated by the Davis family as a great triumph, a step closer to the goal that seemed so distant. In a particularly memorable competition, Samuel presented a project that conceived a sustainable community center designed to harmonize with Portland's natural environment while offering inclusive spaces for art, education, and community gathering. When his name was announced as one of the winners, the joy he felt was immeasurable, not only for the recognition of his work, but for the validation that his chosen path was indeed possible. "This is just the beginning, Samuel," his art teacher, Mrs. Jenkins, told him after the award ceremony, a glow of pride in her eyes. "You have a unique vision and an ability to dream big. Keep it up, and you'll go far." With each victory, big or small, Samuel felt more equipped to face the challenges that the future held. Financial obstacles, though present, began to seem less insurmountable, thanks to the unwavering support of his parents and his own resilience and creativity. Samuel's adolescence was marked by this journey of growth and self-discovery, paving the way for a future where he could finally bring to life the structures that inhabited his boldest dreams. The transition to high school marked a significant period in Samuel Davis's life, bringing with it the harsh reality that adulthood was looming, with all its responsibilities and challenges. By this time, Samuel was deeply aware that the journey towards his dreams would require substantial sacrifices. Determined not to let his family's financial difficulties hinder his academic and professional progress, he embraced the need to work part-time jobs, despite the fatigue and weariness it entailed. After long hours at school, Samuel immersed himself in the working world, taking on various tasks ranging from helping out at a local store to more physical tasks on construction sites, echoing his father's trade. These experiences not only contributed to the family budget, but also served as a parallel education for Samuel, teaching him valuable lessons about work ethic, time management, and the realities of the labor world. At night, after a quick dinner with the family where they shared the day's news with mutual appreciation and support, Samuel retreated to his room to delve into his studies. Surrounded by stacks of books and notebooks, he dedicated himself to his education with unwavering discipline. The hours passed into the night, but fatigue was never enough to keep him away from his study material. It was common to hear Samuel murmuring to himself, going over mathematical formulas or architectural concepts, each repetition ingraining the knowledge he sought even deeper. "Samuel, you can't keep going like this. You need to rest too," his mother Sarah often expressed her concern, peeking through the slightly open door of his room, where the dim light from the study desk was the only illumination. "I know, Mom. Just a little longer. I can't afford to rest too much," Samuel responded, his eyes fixed on his books, the determination in his voice making it clear that he wouldn't let anything deter him from his goals. Education for Samuel was more than just a path to personal fulfillment. It was a bridge to a better future, a tool to transform not only his life, but also that of his family. This deep understanding fueled his resilience and drove him to overcome every obstacle with a strength that even those who knew him best found surprising. The high school years, though challenging, were a testament to Samuel's unwavering commitment to his future. Amidst hard work and long study nights, he found moments of clarity and inspiration, envisioning the structures he would one day design, the classes he would attend in university, and the dreams he would turn into reality. Samuel knew the journey would be long and filled with sacrifices, but the vision of achieving his goals and changing his life through education kept him steadfast on his path, each step a deliberate move towards the future he dared to imagine. From a young age, Samuel Davis stood out not only for his intelligence and creativity, but also for a fierce determination that seemed to blaze within him. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, he witnessed the daily challenges faced by his family and neighbors. Life wasn't easy. Each day brought a new struggle for survival, but also opportunities for small victories. These early experiences, though tough, served as a catalyst for Samuel, forging in him a resilience that would become his trademark. His parents, Michael and Sarah Davis, were the first to instill in him the values of hard work and perseverance. Michael, a skilled carpenter, would often come home exhausted after long hours of work, but never failed to dedicate time to teach Samuel the intricacies of his craft. "Look, Samuel," he would say, while showing his son how to turn a rough piece of wood into an elegant piece of furniture. "Nothing worth having comes easy. It's the effort we put into our work that defines us." Sarah, on the other hand, was the light that illuminated the Davis household with her love for literature and education. A teacher at heart, she filled the family's evenings with stories of great writers and thinkers, each tale a lesson on the importance of pursuing one's dreams with determination and hope. "Remember, Samuel," she would whisper before bedtime, "books are proof that humans can work magic, and you, my dear, have your own kind of magic to share with the world." It was this blend of practical teachings and intellectual encouragement that shaped Samuel into an ambitious and dedicated young man. As he grew, his family's financial challenges became more apparent to him. But instead of discouraging him, these adversities only fueled his desire to create a better future for himself and those around him. The Portland community, with its strong bonds and mutual support, reinforced this determination. He saw in every neighbor and friend a reflection of his own struggle and dreams, and it inspired him to never give up, no matter how unattainable his goals seemed. "Samuel, you have a strength within you that many of us can only dream of possessing," said Mr. Thompson, the school librarian, as he observed Samuel spend hours immersed in books on architecture and engineering. "There's a tenacity in you, a fire that doesn't easily go out. Don't forget that." It was this mix of support and recognition that guided Samuel through the toughest years of his adolescence, when the weight of responsibilities began to feel more palpable. Working part-time jobs while dedicating himself to his studies and helping at home wasn't an easy task, but Samuel faced each challenge with a courage that surprised even those who thought they knew him well. "You're destined for great things, Samuel," his mother told him one night, her words tinged with a mixture of pride and concern. "But never forget where you came from. It's your ability to overcome adversity, your resilience, that will make you not only a great architect, but a great man." That lesson, engraved in Samuel's heart, was the foundation upon which he built not only his future career but his life. The journey was fraught with obstacles, but armed with the hard work, resilience, and determination instilled by his parents and reinforced by the community that watched him grow, Samuel Davis was ready to face the world, carrying with him the hope and courage to turn dreams into reality. On that cold autumn afternoon, the University of Portland had turned into a cauldron of creativity and artistic expression. An art exhibition, widely promoted in academic hallways and student bulletins, was stirring up the campus. Samuel Davis, though usually more inclined towards the schematics and calculations of architecture than the brushstrokes and hues of art, decided to attend. To him, art offered a different perspective, a way to enrich his own architectural creations with a sense of aesthetics and humanity. The exhibition, held in one of the university's spacious galleries, was teeming with students, professors, and local art enthusiasts, all mingling in an animated murmur of admiration and critique. Samuel, a bit out of place among the regular attendees of such events, moved timidly among the displayed pieces, his genuine interest overshadowed by a slight sense of not belonging. It was then that his eyes landed on a collection of watercolors depicting Portland with a vibrancy and unique perspective. The images, flooded with light and color, captured the soul of the city in a way Samuel had never experienced before. He was so absorbed in the details, the way the twilight bathed the streets, the liveliness of the people sketched with just a few strokes, that the world around him seemed to have silenced. "Do you also feel like you could step into these scenes?" The voice, smooth and inquisitive, cut through the silence that Samuel had created around himself. Turning, he found himself facing Elizabeth Johnson, a figure almost mythical at the university. Elizabeth, with her elegant posture, blonde hair cascading in perfect waves over her shoulders, and bright blue eyes, exuded a presence that was both intimidating and magnetic. Unlike Samuel, whose existence was marked by discretion and focus on his studies, Elizabeth lived in the spotlight, accustomed to the attention her lineage and beauty drew. For a moment, Samuel was speechless, confronted not only by her beauty, but by the surprise that the artist behind the works that had so impressed him was right there before him. "Yes, I suppose so," he managed to say finally, his voice choked with sudden anxiety. "They are incredibly vivid. Do you know who the artist is?" The smile Elizabeth offered him in response was like the sun breaking through after a long night. "Actually, yes, I painted these," she revealed, a gleam of pride in her eyes. The confession was met with a wave of admiration from Samuel, not only for Elizabeth's skill but for the humility with which she presented her talent. "That's amazing," Samuel exclaimed, genuinely impressed. "I've never seen Portland portrayed this way. It's like you've captured the essence of the city, but through a dream." The conversation that followed, initially hesitant, quickly turned into an enthusiastic dialogue about art, architecture, and the beauty often overlooked in the everyday details of urban life. Elizabeth, curious about Samuel's perspective as an architecture student, asked questions that challenged him to articulate his own ideals and visions. Samuel, in turn, was fascinated by the way Elizabeth saw the world, so different from his own, yet equally passionate. That unexpected encounter at the art exhibition was not just an artistic revelation for Samuel. It was the beginning of a deep and transformative connection with Elizabeth. Through her eyes, he began to see his own city, and by extension the world around him, in a new light. And for Elizabeth, Samuel offered a perspective grounded in structure and functionality, yet one that did not deny the importance of beauty and emotion. Together they discovered that although they came from seemingly opposite worlds, they shared a common language in their passion for expression and creation. In that magical moment at the University Art Exhibition, when Samuel Davis discovered that Elizabeth Johnson was the artist behind the watercolors that had so captivated him, something within him ignited. The revelation that Elizabeth, with her aura of innate elegance and confidence, shared a love for art as deep as his own, instantly transformed the way he saw her. No longer as the unattainable daughter of one of Portland's most prominent families, but as a kindred spirit, someone whose passions and dreams resonated with his in perfect harmony. As the night progressed, the exhibition hall, filled with murmurs and critical appraisals of the displayed works, became a distant backdrop to the emerging connection between them. Lost in a conversation that flowed freely, Samuel and Elizabeth explored topics ranging from technique and artistic expression to the philosophy behind modern and classical architecture. Every word exchanged, every idea shared, only reinforced the mutual admiration they felt, as well as the pleasant surprise of finding so much in common. Don't you think architecture and art are essentially the same thing? A quest to shape our world, to make it more livable, more beautiful? Samuel questioned, his mind abuzz with the excitement of sharing these reflections with someone he felt truly understood. Elizabeth, with a sparkle of enthusiasm in her blue eyes, responded, "Exactly. That's the essence, isn't it? Both art and architecture speak to creating connections, to translating our experiences and dreams into something tangible that somehow uplifts us." As the conversation deepened, they both opened up about their dreams for the future. Samuel spoke of his vision to design buildings that not only pushed the boundaries of aesthetics and functionality, but also contributed meaningfully to the social fabric of communities. Elizabeth, in turn, shared her desire to capture the complexity and beauty of the human and natural world through her art, to create works that provoked reflection and inspired change. "It's amazing to talk to someone who understands, who truly sees the world in such a similar way," said Samuel, admiration in his voice tinged with a note of wonderment. "I feel like I've found a soulmate, Elizabeth." She smiled, a smile that seemed to light up the entire room, and replied, "I feel the same way, Samuel. It's rare to find someone you can share ideas and dreams with so deeply. Tonight has been a revelation." As the exhibition came to an end and the last visitors began to disperse, Samuel and Elizabeth reluctantly bid farewell, promising to stay in touch and explore together the intersections of their passions. As Samuel walked home under Portland's night sky, his mind was filled with possibilities. He felt that the encounter had opened a new chapter in his life, a chapter where art and architecture intertwined with bonds of understanding and mutual admiration. In the months following their unforgettable meeting at the art exhibition, Samuel and Elizabeth found ways to weave their lives more closely together, despite their distinctly different backgrounds. Each encounter was an opportunity to explore not only the uncharted corners of their own souls, but also the vast territories of their shared passions. Afternoons were often spent in hidden cafes tucked away in Portland's corners, where amidst sips of coffee and bites of cake, they discussed everything from the fundamental principles of Baroque art to the latest trends in sustainable design. Elizabeth, with her refined education and access to circles Samuel barely knew existed, opened up a world of exclusive galleries, architecture conferences, and social events that had previously been foreign to his universe. Samuel, in turn, brought to Elizabeth a perspective rooted in the reality of everyday life, an appreciation for the small beauties and simple joys the world has to offer. Together, they discovered that despite their differences, there was a profound harmony in their worldviews. "Have you noticed how the lines in this painting resemble the curves of certain modern buildings?" Elizabeth would ask, pointing to a canvas in a gallery they had decided to explore together. Samuel, gazing attentively at the artwork, would respond with a sparkle of admiration in his eyes. "That's true. There's a fluidity to it that reflects the dynamics of contemporary architecture. It's fascinating how different forms of art can inspire and influence each other." These exchanges, rich in understanding and mutual respect, had become a fundamental pillar of their growing relationship. Yet, it wasn't just the arts that bound them together. It was also the willingness to share the most intimate aspects of their lives. Elizabeth entrusted Samuel with the challenges of meeting her family's and society's high expectations, the pressure to perpetuate a legacy, and the struggle to find her own voice within a world that often seemed predetermined. Samuel, listening attentively, offered not only his empathy but also his unique perspective, forged in an environment where such expectations were of a very different nature. "It's not easy," he admitted, "but true strength comes from being true to yourself, even when it means challenging what others expect of you." Elizabeth deeply appreciated Samuel's honesty and authenticity, qualities she rarely found in her own circles. In turn, Samuel found himself confronted with a world of expectations and social pressures that were new to him, but he faced each challenge with the courage and resilience he had learned from an early age. At every step, they supported each other, finding comfort in the certainty that together they could face whatever life presented them with. Over time, what began as a connection based on shared interests blossomed into a deep and comprehensive bond. They not only shared ideas and projects, but also dreams, fears, laughter, and tears. Each one's journey, though unique, had become inseparable from the others, weaving a rich and complex tapestry of shared experiences and emotions. The world of possibilities that Elizabeth presented to Samuel was vast and challenging, but together they ventured into it with tireless determination and a sense of wonderment that only true love and mutual understanding can inspire. Challenging every disapproving glance and surpassing the expectations of doubting friends and family, Samuel and Elizabeth chose to unite their lives in matrimony. The wedding ceremony was the embodiment of both of their essences, uncomplicated in its execution yet immeasurably beautiful in its significance. They opted for an outdoor celebration in the heart of one of Portland's most serene parks, where nature served not only as a backdrop but as a silent and imposing witness to their commitment. The trees whispered with the wind, and the sun slowly set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink as they exchanged vows of love and fidelity. In this moment, holding Elizabeth's hands, Samuel felt transcendently fortunate. He was marrying the woman of his dreams, an exceptionally talented artist whose way of seeing the world resonated deeply with his own. Yet, under the veil of this intoxicating happiness, a shadow of concern persisted, a silent unease about how he would fit into the life Elizabeth had always known. Elizabeth's family, though courteous and polite in their interactions, maintained a reserved distance that needed no words to be understood. At every formal dinner, at every social event Samuel accompanied Elizabeth to, the polished gestures and cordial smiles of those around him carried a clear subtext of his modest origins, an invisible but palpable barrier he felt he needed to overcome. Despite these challenges, the strength of Samuel and Elizabeth's relationship lay in the tranquility and support they found in each other. Elizabeth, always a source of encouragement for Samuel, constantly motivated him in his studies of architecture and his projects, playing the roles of muse and critic, a voice of inspiration and, at the same time, constructive challenge. She saw in him not only the man she loved, but a visionary capable of transforming the world around him with his ideas and designs. Samuel, in turn, introduced Elizabeth to a world filled with simplicity and authenticity, far from the social expectations and pressures of her previous life. With him, Elizabeth discovered the beauty in ordinary things, the incalculable value of shared moments, whether it be a casual stroll through the neighborhood or a quiet night at home. engaged in deep conversations about everything and nothing. Samuel taught her to find joy in the little things, a lesson she embraced with each passing day. "You've shown me a world I didn't know I needed," Elizabeth confessed one night as they gazed at the stars from the backyard of their modest yet cozy home. "With you, I've learned to cherish what truly matters." Samuel, hearing her words, felt a wave of love and gratitude for this woman who had chosen to share her life with him. "And you've given me purpose, a reason to dream higher," he responded, firmly holding her hand. Together, we're unstoppable. Amid uncertainties and challenges, Samuel and Elizabeth's love flourished, a testament to the power of true love to overcome social barriers and differences in background. As they found refuge in each other's presence, they together built a life that was a beautiful mosaic of their combined essences, simple in its conception, yet infinitely rich in love and meaning. The early years after Samuel and Elizabeth joined their lives in matrimony were marked by a journey of mutual discovery and necessary adaptations to weave a shared life from previously distinct worlds. This initial period, though filled with love and companionship, also tested the strength and resilience of their relationship as they navigated the complexities of daily life and the long-term dreams they both aspired to achieve together. Samuel, with a determination fueled not only by his own drive for success, but also by the desire to build a solid foundation for the future with Elizabeth, immersed himself in his responsibilities. During the day, he devoted himself to his architecture college classes, absorbing every piece of knowledge with the hope that each new learning would bring him a step closer to his goal. At night, he juggled various part-time jobs, from assisting in design studios to more physical work on construction sites. Each task was not seen as a burden, but as an essential step on his path to a promising future. Elizabeth, in turn, showed her support in ways that transcended the conventional. Her understanding of the art and design world in Portland, along with the connections she possessed, became a crucial lever to pave the way for Samuel in the local architectural scene. With admirable subtlety and effectiveness, she arranged meetings between Samuel and influential figures in the industry, never imposing, but gently introducing him to a circle that might have seemed inaccessible to someone from his humble background. On one of those nights, after Samuel returned from one of those meetings, the couple shared a moment of reflection in their modest living room, a space they had carefully decorated with pieces that reflected their personalities and shared dreams. "Do you think I did well tonight?" Samuel asked, uncertainty evident in his voice as he mentally reviewed each interaction from the event. Elizabeth, always a source of encouragement, placed her hand on his, offering a warm smile. "You were exceptional, Samuel. Your passion and knowledge shone through. It's only a matter of time before everyone sees what I see in you." These words from Elizabeth were not mere compliments. They were the fuel that kept the flame of Samuel's determination burning, especially in moments when doubt threatened to creep in. She not only believed in his potential, but also made it a point to be an active participant in his journey to achieve it. Married life, though filled with challenges, was also a tapestry rich in love, mutual support, and unwavering commitment to each other's dreams. Every obstacle overcome, every small victory celebrated, strengthened the bond between them, shaping not only Samuel's professional future, but also deepening the emotional connection they shared. In this partnership, they found not only the strength to pursue their dreams, but also the certainty that, together, they could face any challenge life presented to them. The discovery of Elizabeth's pregnancy came at a time of sweet celebration and deep reflection for the couple. They had just marked their second wedding anniversary, a milestone that made them contemplate the journey they had traveled together, from the early days of mutual admiration at an art exhibition to the building of a shared life. The news of a new family member's arrival intensified the already heightened emotions, injecting a dose of pure and unadulterated joy into their lives. Samuel, upon hearing Elizabeth share the news with a radiant sparkle in her eyes, felt a wave of happiness flood his heart, a sensation so overwhelming that it left him momentarily speechless. However, this ecstatic happiness was quickly accompanied by a stream of concerns that began to form in the depths of Samuel's mind. The reality of becoming a father, of being responsible for another life besides his and Elizabeth's, began to weigh on him. It wasn't just the paternal responsibility that troubled him, but also how it intertwined with expectations regarding his still developing career. As an architecture student working in part-time jobs to support his family, Samuel was aware of the financial and time challenges that parenthood would bring. Despite these fears, Samuel didn't see Elizabeth's pregnancy solely through a lens of worries. To him, it was a tangible testimony of the deep and enduring love they shared, a manifestation of the life they had carefully and dedicatedly built together. Above all, it was a promise of continuity and hope, a symbol that, regardless of the challenges they faced, they had the capacity to create and nurture life, to extend their love beyond themselves. Elizabeth, this is incredible. Scary, but incredible, Samuel expressed one night as they cuddled on the couch, hands intertwined, sharing the warmth of the moment. I worry, yes, about how we'll manage everything, but knowing that we'll have a little part of both of us growing inside you, that gives me a strength I didn't even know I had. Elizabeth, hearing his words, squeezed his hand, offering a smile that spoke volumes of her confidence in him and their future together. Samuel, we'll figure this out together. Yes, there will be challenges, but there will also be indescribable joys. There's no one else I'd rather embark on this journey with. At this moment of shared vulnerability and joint determination, Samuel and Elizabeth reaffirmed their commitment not only to each other, but also to the future generation they were about to welcome into their lives. The weight of Samuel's concerns never completely disappeared, but Elizabeth's comforting presence, her strength, and optimism ensured that together they could face anything. Pregnancy was indeed a new chapter in their lives, filled with uncertainties but also endless possibilities and the promise of a love that would continue to grow and strengthen over the years. Samuel and Elizabeth's journey, filled with shared dreams and joint plans, took an unexpected and tragic turn. The night that was supposed to be another happy memory in their collection of moments together turned into a watershed, marked by an accident that would forever alter the course of their lives. They were returning from a joyful dinner at the Johnsons', a social event that brought together close friends and family in a warm and welcoming atmosphere. The air was filled with optimism. Conversations revolved around future plans, life projects, and expectations for what was to come. Elizabeth, with her usual consideration for Samuel, took the wheel that night. She wanted him to have the opportunity to unwind, to set aside, even if for a few hours, the pressures and stress accumulated from weeks of hard work and dedication to his studies and architectural projects. You've worked so hard these past few days, Samuel. Let me take care of the driving tonight, she had said with a smile, a gesture reflecting the mutual support and love that underpinned their relationship. As they navigated the nighttime streets of Portland, sporadically illuminated by solitary streetlights casting dancing shadows on the asphalt, there was a sense of deceptive tranquility. The comfortable silence inside the car was a stark contrast to the cacophony of laughter and conversation left behind at the Johnsons'. Grateful for Elizabeth's care, Samuel leaned back in the passenger seat, allowing the serenity of the moment to envelop him. He closed his eyes for a moment, reflecting on how fortunate he was to have someone like Elizabeth by his side. However, cruel fate had other plans for that night. An unexpected and sudden event, an accident, shattered the calm surrounding them, a violent shock that brought with it a whirlwind of devastating consequences. The memory of that night turned into a vivid nightmare that Samuel couldn't exorcise, a constant reminder of how quickly happiness can be overshadowed by an imminent tragedy. In the days and weeks that followed, as they dealt with the aftermath of the accident, Samuel and Elizabeth found themselves navigating through a sea of challenges that would test the limits of their strength and resilience. Laughter and conversations about the future, once so full of hope and anticipation, gave way to a heavy silence, laden with worries and uncertainties. Samuel, in particular, was plagued not only by guilt and remorse, but also by a profound anguish about how to protect and provide for Elizabeth in this moment of vulnerability. The accident was a brutal reminder that, despite all their plans and dreams, they were ultimately at the mercy of forces beyond their control. This reality, so cruelly imposed, became the focus of his sleepless nights and distressing days as they struggled to find a way through the chaos that had invaded their lives. On that fateful night, darkness cloaked the streets of Portland with an almost palpable mantle, turning every shadow into a potential unexplored mystery. Samuel and Elizabeth, returning from a joyful gathering with close friends of the Johnson family, found themselves immersed in a state of serene contentment, unconcerned with the outside world. Elizabeth, insisting that Samuel take a well-deserved rest after weeks of relentless effort, had taken the wheel, guiding them through the calm of the night. They chatted about future plans, laughing and sharing dreams when the tranquility was abruptly shattered. Without warning, a figure emerged from the darkness, appearing directly in front of the vehicle at high speed. Reaction was impossible. Time, insufficiently generous to allow for any swerve or brake. The impact that followed reverberated through the night with a dark force, marking the beginning of a nightmare from which Samuel wished he could wake up. The horrible sound of the crash, metal against something terribly more fragile, was etched into his memory, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. The chaos that unfolded immediately after was a whirlwind of emotions and panic. Elizabeth, engulfed in terrifying confusion, screamed, her voice trembling with the weight of fear and uncertainty. "Samuel, what are we going to do?" she exclaimed, her blue eyes now vast oceans of terror. Samuel, though equally frightened, knew he needed to act, and he needed to do so quickly. The awareness of what the pregnancy meant for them both, the hope and promise of a new life, along with the potential disaster this incident could bring to their family's reputation and harmony, weighed on him with overwhelming urgency. In a gesture of desperation, driven by a deep and unwavering love for Elizabeth and the child they were expecting, he made a rash decision, believing it to be the only way out. "I'll say I was driving," he muttered quickly, his voice a paradox of determination and fear. "Elizabeth, you need to think about our baby. I'll take care of everything." The exchange of positions within the car was a blur, a series of frantic and hurried movements in the silent night, executed with a precision dictated by pure instinct for protection. When the sirens announced the arrival of the police, echoing through the empty streets like an ominous harbinger, Samuel had already taken Elizabeth's place, preparing to face the consequences of his choice. Asserting his responsibility for the accident was the easy part. Facing the immediate and long-term consequences of his decision would be the true challenge. With his heart weighed down by the burden of the choice he had made, Samuel confronted the officers, his fate and that of his family now hanging by the thread of uncertainty. In this moment of ultimate trial, he knew that nothing would ever be the same. Life, as it often does, had veered off its expected course, thrusting Samuel and Elizabeth into a whirlwind of events that would test the strength of their love and the depth of their resilience. During the long months in prison, Samuel found himself in a state of isolation that transcended the cold metal bars of his cell. Each day unfolded like a solitary echo of the ones before, marked by monotony and forced introspection. However, it was in this period of confinement that Samuel was confronted with the most painful truths of his life, truths that tested the limits of his resilience and faith in humanity. The revelation of Elizabeth's infidelity was like a sharp blade that tore through the fabric of his hopes and dreams. The fact that he had taken responsibility for the accident, an act born out of love and a desire to protect his family, now seemed a bitter irony in the face of the betrayal unfolding far from his eyes. The news came to him through a cold, impersonal letter, the words printed on the page seeming to mock his already desperate situation. The pain of loss was amplified by the reality that his son, the symbol of his love and hope for the future, would never come to know this world. The child he had imagined holding in his arms, teaching to walk and watching grow, had become only a shattered dream, a promise that would never be fulfilled. In the days that followed, Samuel wavered between disbelief and desolation, his mind a storm of conflicting emotions. Anger simmered in his chest, a visceral response to the betrayal and injustice of his situation. At the same time, regret flooded over him, leading him to question his own choices and actions. Had his decision to take the blame for the accident been a mistake? Could he have prevented the unfolding of these tragic events? Yet it was longing that proved to be Samuel's most constant companion during his sleepless nights. Longing for Elizabeth, despite the pain her betrayal caused, and longing for the life they had planned together. In his solitude, he allowed himself to recall moments of shared happiness, conversations about art and architecture, plans for the future. These memories, though sweet, were now tinged with bitterness, each one a reminder of what had been irretrievably lost. Samuel's cell became not only a physical space of confinement but also an emotional prison, where the walls seemed to close in on him with the weight of his losses. Yet, it was in this abyss of despair that Samuel began to forge a new sense of purpose. The pain, though overwhelming, served as a catalyst for a slow but inexorable process of inner transformation. Over time, the painful reflection began to give way to a deeper understanding of oneself and the world around him. Samuel recognized that despite betrayal and loss, he still possessed the ability to rebuild his life, to find meaning in adversity. He began to view the future not as an abyss of despair, but as an open field of possibilities, where the pain of the past could be transformed into lessons for a wiser and more compassionate tomorrow. When Samuel finally crossed the prison gates, liberated after serving his sentence, he hoped to feel a wave of relief, a sense of renewed freedom. However, the reality awaiting him outside the institution's walls was very different from what he had imagined during his long days of incarceration. The world didn't welcome him with open arms. Instead, he found himself immersed in a sea of cautious glances and closed doors. Society, which once might have seen him as a promising young man, full of ambition and dreams of transforming the world with his architecture, now reduced him to an inescapable stigma, that of a former prisoner. The label weighed on him like a mantle, suffocating his hopes and turning every interaction into a reminder of his past. Samuel felt rejection seeping into every aspect of his life, from the futile attempts to find employment to the distrustful looks of old friends and acquaintances who crossed his path. He tried to reconnect with the world he had left behind, but it seemed that society had forgotten who he was before the incident, focusing only on the darkest chapter of his history. "How are you adjusting, Samuel?" his mother asked one night, her face marked by lines of worry that seemed to have deepened in his absence. They were sitting in the small kitchen of the family home, a space that once symbolized comfort and security, but now felt cramped and restrictive. "It's hard, Mom," Samuel admitted, his voice low, struggling to maintain composure. "Everyone sees me as a criminal. No matter how hard I try, I can't escape that shadow." "You are more than your mistakes, Samuel. You will always be my son, and I know the good man you are." "Don't let others' judgment define who you are," she replied, holding his hand in an unwavering gesture of support. These words, though comforting, couldn't completely dispel the fog of disillusionment surrounding Samuel. He found himself confronted with the harsh reality that the path to redemption and acceptance would be much longer and more arduous than anything he had faced behind bars. In his quest to start anew, Samuel tried repeatedly to enter the job market, facing countless rejections that increasingly convinced him of the futility of his efforts. "We regret to inform you, but we cannot take the risk," he often heard, each denial a blow to his already fragile self-esteem. It was amidst this whirlwind of challenges that Samuel began to realize that if he wanted to find his place in the world again, he would need to forge his own path, one that didn't rely on the acceptance or approval of those unable to see beyond his past. With this realization, a new determination began to sprout within him, fueled by the pain of his experiences, but also by the hope of proving that he was capable of more than society expected of him. Samuel knew that the journey ahead would be tough, filled with more rejections and possible failures. But he also knew that within him lay the strength and courage to face these challenges. His release from prison hadn't been the end of his sentence, but the beginning of a much more complex battle, the rebuilding of his life and identity in a world that seemed to have forgotten who he truly was. On the chilly morning following his release, Samuel Davis walked the streets of Portland, his steps devoid of the confident familiarity he once possessed. The city, with its architectural contours and urban landscapes that he once admired, now unfolded before him like unfamiliar territory, tinged with a sense of alienation he couldn't shake. The release, which should have been a triumphant return to the world he left behind, felt more like exile in foreign lands. The marks left by prison on Samuel extended beyond the visible scars of his worn appearance and chronically fatigued eyes. They were emotional and psychological wounds that didn't heal with the mere passage of time, side effects of long periods of isolation and forced reflection. As he walked, the feeling of being constantly evaluated by passers-by, the sharp perception of thinly veiled whispers and furtive glances, only served to cement his perception of being permanently on the fringe of the society he so desperately wished to reintegrate into, the places in Portland that once represented refuge and inspiration for Samuel, the expansive bridges under which he dreamed of future architectural projects, the parks where he spent hours soaking in the serenity of nature, now seemed imbued with new meaning. They were like labyrinths of silent judgments and symbolically closed doors, each blocked passage reinforcing his sense of isolation. On a particularly desolate afternoon, as Samuel crossed Hawthorne Bridge, a place where he once felt a deep connection to the vibrant life of the city, he paused to gaze down at the waters of the Willamette River below. The reflection of the city on the water's surface, once a symbol of hope and endless possibilities, now seemed distorted, almost unrecognizable. It all seems so different now, Samuel murmured to himself, his voice almost lost in the sound of constant traffic. "You seem lost, friend." An unfamiliar voice interrupted his thoughts. Turning, Samuel found an elderly gentleman, whose face bore the marks of time, but whose eyes shimmered with a kind of compassionate understanding. "I suppose I am," Samuel admitted, surprised to find a stranger willing to offer a moment of human connection amidst his self-imposed solitude. "Portland has a way of changing people, but also of healing them. Give it time, son. You'll find your way back," the man said, before continuing on his way, leaving Samuel alone with his thoughts once more. That brief encounter, though fleeting, planted a seed of hope in Samuel's heart. Perhaps, he thought, there was a way to rediscover his connection to the city and the people around him. Perhaps, despite everything, there was still a path home. Moved by this glimmer of hope, Samuel continued his walk, the stranger's words echoing in his mind. Portland, with its complexities and contradictions, hadn't truly become strange and hostile. It was simply a mirror of the internal tumult Samuel was facing. Recognizing this, he began to realize that his journey toward reintegrating into society would be both a quest for external acceptance and an exploration of internal reconciliation. In the months that followed his release, the darkness Samuel Davis carried in his heart seemed almost tangible, a shadow silently following him with every step. The decision to seclude himself in the small house he had acquired for his mother before his life was overturned by chaos was not taken lightly. It was a gesture of desperation, a search for some semblance of normalcy or peace amidst the whirlwind that had become his existence. Situated in a quieter, more modest corner of Portland, this house represented to Samuel a beacon of hope, a chance to begin rebuilding his life away from judgmental eyes and the painful memories that haunted him. The residence, although modest in size and adornments, was nestled in a neighborhood that breathed an air of simplicity and tranquility, vividly contrasting with the tumultuous complexity of his own mind. Samuel saw in that house not only a physical shelter, but also a sanctuary for his tormented soul, a place where he could perhaps find a way back to himself. The quiet atmosphere of the neighborhood offered a welcome respite from the relentless reminders of his past, allowing him space to breathe and reflect. Within these modest confines, Samuel dedicated himself to architecture and renovation projects, each task a timid step toward personal redemption. These projects were not grand in scale or ambition, but they were deeply meaningful to him. Through physical labor, he found a form of expression, a way to leave his mark on a world that had long seemed indifferent to his existence. Each hammer blow, each drawn line was a meditation, a way for Samuel to engage with his most intimate and sometimes darkest thoughts. However, the loneliness that accompanied this existence was palpable. The days unfolded in a silent monotony, punctuated only by the sound of his own footsteps and the occasional noise of tools. The nights were long and filled with introspection, where Samuel found himself confronted by the unanswered questions that life insisted on presenting to him. Where did it all go wrong? He often wondered, lost in the labyrinths of his own mind. On one of those nights, as Samuel sat at the kitchen table, the dim light of the lamp casting soft shadows over the plans of a renovation project, he allowed himself to reflect on the twists and turns of his journey. The table, strewn with papers and sketches, became a silent witness to the internal conflict that consumed him. "Will I ever shake off this shadow?" he questioned, his gaze lost in the dance of shadows. The small house in Portland, though a refuge from the external storms, couldn't shield him from the tempests that raged within. Yet it was in this solitary space, in this modest corner of the world, that Samuel began to glimpse the possibility of redemption. Each day was a struggle, each small project a battle won against the demons of the past. And amidst the loneliness and hard work, Samuel began to forge, brick by brick, the path back to a life he hoped he could once again call his own. During the winter months, when the night enveloped Portland in its icy cloak, Samuel found a strange comfort in the empty, silent streets of the city. It was on his nightly walks, away from the confining walls of his home, that he sought some semblance of peace, a moment to breathe away from the constant weight of his past. The stillness of the sleeping city, with its soft lights flickering in the distance, offered Samuel a temporary refuge, a place where he could try to sort through the thoughts incessantly swirling in his mind. On a particularly frigid night where the wind seemed to cut to the bone, Samuel walked aimlessly, his steps echoing on the cold pavement. It was then that a faint, irregular sound pierced the monotony of the surroundings. The cry of a baby, vulnerable and desperate, emanating from a dark alley that Samuel could easily have ignored on any other night. Moved by an impulse he didn't fully comprehend, he approached, finding there, under the flickering light of a lamppost, a newborn wrapped in old inadequate cloths to shield him from the penetrating cold. The sight of that tiny life, abandoned and alone in the shadows of an alley, ignited in Samuel a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. Without hesitation, he carefully gathered the baby into his arms, wrapping him in his own coat to offer some warmth. The contrast between the baby's fragility and the harshness of the environment around him was a scene Samuel would never forget, deeply etching into his already scarred soul. With the baby safely in his arms, Samuel hurried towards the nearest hospital, his steps quick and purposeful now with a clear mission. Upon arrival, he was immediately greeted by nurses and doctors who swiftly mobilized to care for the newborn. As he watched the healthcare professionals work to save the child's life, Samuel felt a complex mixture of emotions wash over him. There was relief, yes, for having found the baby in time, but also a profound sadness that someone could abandon such an innocent life. And strangely, there was a sense of redemption, a hope that perhaps this unexpected act of kindness could somehow make up for the mistakes and losses of his past. At that moment, standing in the hospital reception, Samuel realized that his life had once again changed in a way he could never have anticipated. He didn't know what the future held for him or for the baby he had rescued, but on that cold winter night he felt, for the first time in a long while, that perhaps there was a path ahead, a chance for new beginnings and for healing the wounds of the past. There were still many unanswered questions, many challenges to face, but Samuel knew that regardless of what came next, he had made the right choice that night. A choice that would redefine the course of his life. On that unforgettable night in the hospital, as Samuel anxiously awaited news about the baby he had rescued, he was approached by a figure who would play a significant role in his life. Dr. Amelia Turner. Amelia, with her serene demeanor and a gaze that overflowed with a blend of strength and kindness, presented herself not only as a dedicated physician, but as someone who deeply understood pain and loss. She had lived through her own share of tragedies, facing adversities that had shaped her in complex ways, making her sensitive to the invisible wounds Samuel carried. Their initial moments of interaction were marked by a silent exchange that conveyed more than words could express. Samuel immediately sensed there was something about this woman that echoed his own experiences, a familiarity in how she dealt with pain and loss. Amelia, in turn, saw in Samuel and the abandoned baby two souls that, despite the desolate circumstances, fought for hope and redemption. When Amelia spoke, her voice carried a softness that was both comforting and decisive. "He needs us," she said, referring to the baby with a conviction that made her commitment to the child's well-being clear. Amelia's statement wasn't just an observation about the immediate need for medical care for the baby. It was also a recognition of the human connection forming between them, a bond forged amidst adversity. "And perhaps we need him too," continued Amelia, her eyes meeting Samuel's with an intensity that conveyed a profound mutual understanding. These words resonated within Samuel, illuminating the darkness he felt within himself. Amidst the confusion and regret that had accompanied him since the night of the accident, the simple presence of that baby and Amelia's intuitive care offered a perspective of healing and purpose he didn't realize he was seeking. In the days that followed, as the baby recovered under Amelia's diligent care and the medical team's expertise, Samuel and Amelia found themselves meeting often, sharing pieces of their stories and worldviews. With each conversation, more was revealed about their personal journeys, the losses that had shaped their paths, and the hopes they still dared to nurture. The mutual empathy and understanding that arose from these encounters served as a balm for their wounded souls, providing a sense of community and purpose they had both lost. The relationship that developed among Samuel, Amelia, and the baby became a testament to the power of human compassion and the ability to find light even in the darkest moments. For Samuel, meeting Amelia at the hospital on that critical night wasn't just a chance encounter. It was a crucial step in his journey of redemption and personal rebuilding, a reminder that even in the most tragic circumstances, there is room for new beginnings and for unexpected love to flourish. As Samuel and Amelia dedicated their days and nights to caring for hope, a deep and indelible connection began to form between them, fueled by shared vulnerability and the mutual compassion that emerged from those early moments of uncertainty in the hospital. Hope's presence in their lives acted as a catalyst for profound emotional transformation, one that neither of them could have anticipated. In the weeks following the encounter at the hospital, as they took turns caring for Hope, tending to her needs with tender dedication, Samuel found a new purpose in his existence, once haunted by loss and regret. Little Hope, with her unassuming smile and innocent joy, became to Samuel the symbol of a future he had previously deemed irretrievably lost. She represented the possibility of redemption, a tangible reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, there was room for hope and renewal. For Amelia, who bore the scars of her own losses, the arrival of Hope and Samuel into her life meant an emotional awakening, a reigniting of the flame of hope she thought had extinguished. Gradually, amid diaper changes, midnight feedings, and visits to the pediatrician, Amelia began to open herself to the possibility of happiness and contentment, an idea she had relegated to the past. "Hope is like a little miracle, isn't she?" Amelia murmured one night, watching Samuel cradle the sleeping infant in his arms. "She's brought so much light into our lives. It's hard to imagine what it was like before her." Samuel, looking at Amelia with a sense of gratitude and admiration, agreed. "She is. And I wouldn't have been able to get through all of this without you, Amelia. You've shown me that there's still beauty and kindness in the world, even after everything that's happened." It was amidst these moments of sharing and vulnerability that the decision to adopt Hope together crystallized into an unwavering commitment. It was not just an act of protecting and nurturing a life that had been left at their doorstep. It was a symbol of the unbreakable bond they had formed, a pact to move forward together, no longer defined by the shadows of their pasts, but by the light of a future they chose to build together. The adoption of Hope not only marked the closing of a chapter marked by pain and isolation for Samuel and Amelia, it was the dawn of a new journey they would undertake as a family. A journey of love, healing, and discovery, where every smile from Hope was a reminder of the infinite possibilities the future held. Together, they began to weave the threads of a new story, a narrative of resilience and hope, rooted in the promise of fresh beginnings and the unconditional love they had found in each other and in hope. Over the years following that transformative night, Samuel Davis's existence unfolded in ways he could never have predicted, even in his most optimistic moments. Alongside Amelia, who became his inseparable companion through life's challenges and joys, they embarked on a mission of utmost compassion and dedication. The love they had discovered for each other and for hope expanded, becoming a driving force to reach out to those in need. Inspired by the adversities he had overcome and by a deep sense of gratitude for the unconditional support he had received, Samuel channeled his passion for architecture into a project with a purpose greater than any he had undertaken before. He designed and helped build an orphanage in Portland, conceived not only as a shelter but as a true home for children facing the abandonment and loneliness he knew all too well. This orphanage was designed with every detail carefully thought out to offer warmth, security, and a sense of belonging, values that Samuel, Amelia, and Hope deeply cherished in their own family. The inauguration ceremony of the orphanage was a celebratory milestone, not only for Samuel and his family, but for the entire community that had witnessed his transformation and triumph over adversity. The event brought together people from all parts of the city, each carrying with them a mixture of admiration and inspiration for Samuel's story. As the ribbons were cut and the doors opened, all eyes turned to the children who ran to explore their new home, their laughter and shouts of joy echoing through the air. Standing at a distance, observing the scene with a sense of fulfillment that flooded his being, Samuel reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought of the nights of despair, the moments when the darkness seemed insurmountable, and marveled at how life could change so drastically. Every step taken, every decision made, even those born of pain and regret, had contributed to the construction of this future now unfolding before his eyes. "We did it, Amelia," Samuel said, his voice laden with emotion as he turned to look at his wife, who shared his gaze of contentment and pride. "This place, it's a reflection of our love, of our family. It's proof that even in the darkest moments there's always a glimmer of hope." Amelia, tears glistening in her eyes, smiled and squeezed his hand. "Yes, we did," she agreed, looking around at the children and then back at Samuel. "And this is just the beginning. Together, we can do even more." On that day, as the children explored the garden under the bright sun, Samuel knew he had found his true purpose. The orphanage, with its warm environment and promise of new beginnings, was not just a tribute to the path he had traveled. It was a bridge to the future, a legacy of love, compassion, and the unwavering belief that it's possible to turn pain into hope and despair into joy. In the intricate tapestry of his life, Samuel Davis had woven threads of pain and loss, but now, with a skill born of experience and compassion, he had transformed that fabric into a work of hope and renewal. The construction of the orphanage in Portland was not just the realization of his dream. It was a monument to his personal journey, from darkness to light, from despair to redemption. This place, emerging as a beacon of warmth and love, was the tangible reflection of the new purpose Samuel had discovered over the years, a mission to reach out to those who, like him, needed to find their way back home. Every brick laid, every room decorated, every space created in the orphanage had been carefully thought out by Samuel, with invaluable help from Amelia and, of course, the inspiring presence of Hope. Together, they envisioned an environment that not only provided shelter and safety for abandoned children, but also offered warmth, love, and the promise of a better future. For Samuel, more than any architectural project he had conceived before, this was personal. He saw each child who passed through its gates not just as an individual in need of care, but as a kindred spirit, a living reminder of his own vulnerability and the strength found in faith and love. The inauguration of the orphanage was a day filled with emotions, a celebration of life, community, and the transformative power of love. The local community, many of whom had followed Samuel's turbulent journey, came out in force, offering their support and admiration for the work he, Amelia, and Hope had accomplished. Watching the children playing in the garden, their laughter filling the air, brought Samuel a sense of fulfillment and deep gratitude that words could hardly express. As the sun set, painting the Portland sky with hues of gold and amber, bathing the orphanage in an almost celestial light, Samuel allowed himself a moment of silent reflection. He thought about the moments of doubt and despair, the lonely nights and the days of struggle. Every difficult step, every painful choice had been part of a larger journey, a path that led him to this exact point in time. "And it was worth it, wasn't it?" Amelia asked, approaching him with hope by her side, both sharing in that moment of serenity. "It was," Samuel replied, his voice choked with emotion. "Every moment, every challenge, was worth it for this." He gestured toward the orphanage, the children, the future they had built together. Love, Samuel had learned, was an unstoppable force. It had the power to heal the deepest wounds, to transform darkness into light, and to bring hope where there had once been only despair. And as night fell over Portland, he knew that, despite everything, love had prevailed, weaving a new beginning into the fabric of their lives, a beginning marked not by what had been lost, but by what had been found and created together. So, what did you think of this incredible story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications to be alerted to each new video. Until next time.